Hey guys, well today we're going to do exactly what the thumbnail says. We're going to review the Minn Kota Terrova after 3 years of use. You know, I'm like everybody else. I do review videos, but I really think a guy needs to come back and look at stuff after 2, 3, 4 years and actually do a review then. Take a look at what went right, what went wrong, what features did I use, and what features did I think I'd use that I never did. And you can only do that if you're looking at something after 2 or 3 years of use, so that's why I'm doing this. When I say 3 years of use, I use this a lot. We're going to come down to 1 or 2 days a week, sometimes 3, 4, 5 days a week. And I'm starting out late March, early April, and it's just now getting 1st December, I'm getting ready to put this away for the year. So I've used this quite a bit in the last 3 years. All right, Minn Kota Terrova. Here's the thing with when I started with it, when I first looked at the Terrova years ago, I wanted one in the worst way, but the problem at that time was it didn't come with a foot control, all right? I'm a bass fisherman, and the type of fishing you do is gonna have a lot to do with the features you're gonna use. All right, so I'm a bass fisherman. I'm gonna pound the bank. I readily admit, that's what I'm gonna spend my day doing. And when I first looked at the Terrova, the only way to run it was with a remote control. It didn't have a foot control when I very first looked at doing this. As I said, I'm a bass fisherman. So if I'm gonna pound the bank and I got a rod in one hand and a reel in the other hand, I don't have a third hand to run remote. So I didn't get one. I thought I need a foot control. Well, lo and behold, the next year they came out, they had a foot control. Now they had both. So now I bought the unit. If I was a walleye fisherman and I spent my day trolling up and down the lake, probably didn't need a foot control. This is all I needed. But in my case, I wanted both. So how much have I used how much have I used the remote control? Probably once or twice, and that's it. Again, for me, it doesn't work. I'm fishing, I've got 2 hands, I'm doing something constantly. Yeah, I could attach it to my belt and it's right there, but I got the foot control, so I really do not use this. I bring it with me, and I will explain why I bring it with me a little bit later. But for me, it's all about the foot control. That's what everything does for me. All right, so what features am I using that's on here or with this motor, and which ones don't I use? Autopilot. I do not use autopilot. I never have. All right. I'm in eastern Nebraska. We have a lot of little lakes. There's nothing real big. We have no giant reservoirs. I'm fishing sometimes in 10, 20, 30 acre lakes. Maybe 200 or 300 acre would be a bigger lake for me. So I really don't have a lot of use for autopilot. Buttons at the bottom, rarely use them. Even the sporadic control on it, just to put the motor, I rarely use that. Almost all my use is on constant. I prefer it on constant, and then I will adjust my speed from 0 to 10 for the speed I need over here. So that's about all my use is constant. Every once in a while I'm using it this way and control my motor, but for the majority of the time, I'm using constant. So autopilot doesn't mean anything to me. Most of these down here didn't mean anything to me. Constant means quite a bit. Another feature to do here is to lay down tracks. All right, and that's something I thought, man, this is what I'm going to do. I want tracks. I want to set down a track. I can see this bank and I'm going to run down here and it's going to be great. And 3 years later, I've never used a track. I've never bothered to set up a track. It just, and this year I was really going to do it, and then I ended up not doing it when it was all said and done. Maybe next year I'll actually do it. But again, I got these little small lakes I'm fishing. I just haven't seen the need to set up a track. Now, again, I'm a walleye fisherman, and I'm trolling up and down the lake. You couldn't do without tracks. I don't know how you could go without tracks. I mean, clearly that's got to be the way to do it, especially when you can tie it into fish finders today and you put the two together. I mean, for the guy that's doing stuff like that, that's probably a feature you're going to use constantly. But it's one I never used. So we're going back to what kind of fishing you do as to what features you're going to use. Which brings me back to spot lock. Spot lock is the feature I use constantly. I am always using spot lock. Now that I've had it, I don't know how I could ever live without it again. I'm fishing a rocky bank and the wind's blowing in, perfect conditions, nice rocky bank with the wind blowing into it, just perfect. You hook a fish, you get snagged up, something happens, you need to do something, but the wind's going to blow you in. Normally, you're okay, well, let's get out away from the bank away so the wind doesn't blow me in the rocks. With spot lock, you just step out a little bit and hit the spot lock and go do what you're doing. Take the fish off, tie on a new lure, get untangled, whatever happened, do it, and then come back and hit the button again, and you don't have to go very far. You've just stayed right where you were. So, another situation, I love fishing offshore structure. I love humps, points, and that kind of stuff. And humps or points are something you're going to spend a lot more time at. It's not like there's a tree trunk and I'm throwing to this tree trunk on both sides and I'm moving on. At a hump, I may sit and fan cast across the big area. That's where I love spot lock. I get myself into the right position I want, I hit spot lock, and I just start fishing. Whether I'm fishing the hump or fishing the point or whatever I'm doing, I can do that, and the boat just takes care of itself. So I love spot lock, and I don't think I'll ever go without that again. To me, that is that important for me. Let's get down to something that didn't quite work right. I'm going to give Minn Kota some credit on this one, though. They really came through, and some of it even may have been my problem when it was all said and done. Foot control. Not quite 1 year into this, and I started having a problem with the foot control. And the main problem I had was with the constant button. And that is, I would put the constant button, click it on, and I could not get it back off. Once it was on, it wouldn't come off. Now, when it wouldn't come off, you go, oh, you can't even shut the motor down. Technically, I was doing the 0 to 10. I'd literally be stuck on constant, and I'd just run it down to 0. And it was like the motor wasn't running, and I'd bring it back up. So I could get by with that, so I could live with it. The problem was when constant was stuck, spot lock wouldn't work. I lost spot lock, I couldn't use it anymore. So, but I had the problem with it, and sometimes it would last an hour. Sometimes just a few minutes. Sometimes the whole day. I couldn't get it shut off. I mean, I shut it off. I pulled the power plug. I did everything I could. A lot of times I'd come back the next day, it was working fine again. But it just kept up with the problem, and that's why I started carrying the remote. I didn't carry it for a while, but I started carrying the remote again because I thought if I got a problem with this, I can at least move over and start using this. So it wasn't going to be a total bust. There's nothing worse. I could come out to start fishing for the day, and 30 minutes into the day, this screws up. And that screws up, and now I'm took. Well, that's why I carried this. Most cases, I really didn't need to use it because, like I said, I'd just take it from 0 to 10, and I'd get by, and I could survive the day. I just didn't have my spot lock anymore because I couldn't override that feature. Now, called Minn Kota. Told them the problem I had. It was less than a year, so I'm assuming it was probably another 1 year warranty, but I really don't know and I didn't ask. Either way, they said, no problem, we'll send you a new one. And here's where I got to give Minn Kota some credit. They emailed me a tag. I stuck the tag on a box, took it into one of the shipping places you'd have, shipping stores, gave it to them. They said, no problem, it's all prepaid. And the thing I really liked about this was, now I didn't have to pay anything to send it back. When the shipping store got it, they scanned the barcode. And the minute they scanned the barcode, Minn Kota was informed that mine was coming to them. And as soon as they knew that, they stuck a new one in the box and started sending it to me. So instead of having to wait until all the way till Minn Kota got it, looked at it and everything else, said, okay, yeah, it is bad, send him another one. Didn't have to do any of that. As soon as the barcode was scanned, the new one was coming. This whole thing took 2 or 3 days. We know we never want to be without our boat if we can help it. We want to go fishing. So I give Minn Kota some real credit there. The way they had this set up to get me the new one, that was really great. I got it back in good time. Now, was it really the problem with the foot control? And it may have been, but did I contribute to the problem? I want to tell you that so it doesn't say anything doesn't happen to you. And I got to give you just a little background, all right? Year 1 is when I had this problem towards the end of the year. I live in the country. I got 3 miles of gravel road to get me to the pavement, and of course 3 miles gravel road to get me back here. So that's 6 miles of gravel I'm doing every time I'm going back and forth, and of course we have some dust. Had the problem on year 1, got the new one in, probably only used it once or twice after I got it. In 2019, which became in year 2, we had terrible floods here in March, and instead of me taking 10 or 12 miles to get to the lake, I was going to have now go about 50 miles around because it was so far, because the roads were tore up from the flood. I have a private lake where I keep a camper and I can keep the boat, and then a bunch of state lakes real close to that. So I took the boat to the private lake, put it by the camper, then went out and bought a solar panel kit from Harbor Freight to charge up my trolling motor batteries because there was no electricity at that lake. And in 2019, this boat spent the entire summer at that lake. Now, every once in a while, it would go to the state lake just a mile or 2 away. But I spent all of 2019, this boat never came home all summer. Starting this year, 2020, back to the lake it went again. I had the solar panel, so why not just leave it there? So I left it there again. But about August, September, I decided I wanted to bring it home and hit a few other places. So I brought it home, and it was probably my first time or second time going to another lake. After bringing it home, it started again. The same problem started, the constant stuck. It didn't stick very long. 10 minutes later, I had it off. And it worked fine. But then I got to thinking, that's my first time driving down these dusty gravel roads. Am I getting dust on the contacts? And is that why these buttons aren't working properly? Am I getting dust on that? So it worked when I got done at the end of the day. So this time, instead of just leaving it sitting on the front deck, is where I usually leave it, I opened a storage compartment, wrapped it up, and put it inside a storage compartment. I've gone back out 4 or 5 more times this year after that, never had a problem. So, do you have a problem with this sometimes because of dust on the contacts? Maybe that's it. I don't have the actual answer if that was it for sure. But I'm willing to take a little bit of blame and saying maybe some of that can be my problem driving it on dusty roads. So I'm going to keep mine undercover from now on when I'm doing that. I don't drive down the road with the cover on. So that might be something you think about. As for the motor itself, after 3 years of use, am I happy? You better believe it. I am very happy. I have no problems with this. I have no problems with Minn Kota. I would do this again in a heartbeat. It had no problem at all. In fact, as I said, when it comes to spot lock, I'm never going to be without that again. I can't. I use it too much. I get so much out of it. I've got to stay with it. So I love the Minn Kota Terrova. Got no problems with it after 3 years. I'd recommend one. Hey, thanks for sticking with me. Subscribe to the channel if you would. Hope to see you again real soon.